Hello everybody, my name is Vít Procházka and I would like to welcome you to the second part of the camera tracking tutorial for Blender. Well, it's been a really long time since the first part, but I waited for the official release of the Blender 2.79, where is a little feature that's named Shadow Catcher, and I would love to show you how it works and how we will use it in this second part. So I used the video, tracked the camera and baked the motion of the camera to keyframes and put some simple object like this teapot to the scene to test if everything works as it should. And it seems like it works, it seems like we are done. So why this second part? Well, in the second part I would like to show you how to create a HDR map for lighting, so it seems like the object actually belongs to the environment, belongs to the scene, and also how to achieve some shadows and ambient occlusion, so it seems like the objects actually interact with the environment, so the teapot will look like it actually sits on this ground. Well, let's start with the lighting. I put this glazing globe or mirror ball or whatever shiny rounded object in the scene, in the actual real world, of course, and I make a photo of it from both sides and with different exposures. You can see that the quality isn't really that astonishing, it's really bad quality, but it will be good enough for lighting. I will not use this for anything else, so it won't be in the background, it won't be in the render at all. So I have this side, actually kind of regular photo, one that is same but really underexposed, and one that's really overexposed, and the same thing from the other side. But they are just JPEGs, so I need to recreate HDR image from this information. I will use Photoshop for it because it has really nice function here, file, automate, merge to HDR Pro, and here I will just find these images like these three, so it's the same side with different exposures. Okay, and it will do its magic and it will create the HDR image for me. The only thing I have to make sure is that the mode is 32-bit, so it's actually have all the lighting information that I need. I'm pretty sure GIMP is also capable of this, but with some plugins and I don't have them. So I will use this method, just OK. And only thing I need to do with this image is to crop it down, so I will have just the sphere in the image. I don't have to be that much precise to 1 pixel precision, but if I am not exactly on the edge, it's better to be inside than of the outside. So I will be, for the safe measures, I will be inside of the sphere with this cropping tool, enter, file, save as, and I have to make sure that the format is set to HDR or maybe EXR, it should work as well. I will save it somewhere and do the exact same thing for the other side. I already did it. I have here 1 and 2, really clever naming, and I have to deform it to resemble the equirectangular mapping. I will show you quickly what it means. I will use another software, HDR Shop. It should be free, but I am not sure if it's still somewhere for download. I will try to find some link where you can get it and put it to the description. The user interface of this program is pretty much non-existent, but it will serve its purpose that we need. So I will just put this HDR image here, and all I will do is edit, image, panorama, panoramic transformations, and here change the format to latitude, longitude. Everything else I will just let as it is, hit OK, and this is the panoramic picture that you are probably more familiar with. But it's just one side, so I will just File, Save As. Here I have to be sure it's again HDR image. Do it for both sides. I have it here as A's and B's. You can see really naming isn't my good side, and I have to merge these again to just one image, and I will use again Photoshop. I don't need this anymore, so File, Open, where it is, A's, Open, let's wait a little bit, OK, File, Open the B's, which is the other side, OK, and I will select the E's, Control C, and put it twice over this background, over this side. So Control V, and let's turn off one right now. Select this one, push down the opacity, so I will see how it corresponds with the background, and I will try to move it to the side until it's roughly aligned with something in the background. I can see here the part of the building, so I will try to align it as it is. Turn on opacity back to 100%, and the same with this top layer with the other copy. Push down the opacity and move it until it's aligned with something like this, for example. Back the opacity, and just make sure that you erase the hard edges of these two layers. So here, eraser, opacity, start with 100% with this edge to get rid of it, and now just lower the opacity and lower it again and again. I'm pretty sure that if you are better with Photoshop than me, and you probably are, you will figure out how to do it actually with really nice gradient or something that it will smoothly transition from one image to another. But as I said, I will not use this image in the render. I will use it only as lighting information, so even this is kind of acceptable for my purpose. So I will save this again as HDR image, and I should end up with something like this. This doesn't really looks that convincing, but I'm pretty sure that when we put it inside Blender, we will see that it should work. Let's go to the Blender. Here we have our object, and I want to create the world around it. You probably know how to create the HDR lighting, HDR world. Let's go to the node editor, world settings. I already have some here. You probably will have just this world background, so put there environment texture and some mapping, so you can rotate it as you want, and generated coordinates, you really don't need this, but whatever, it's not wrong to have it there. And to see what we are doing, I will pick HDR image that we created, and here in the N panel, go to the display and world background. So now I have to make sure that I am in the perspective view, so hit 5 in the number pad if I am not, and you can see around this object that we are kind of in the scene. You can see that the quality of this image is really rubbish, but the colors are there, the light part on the top is there, the dark part on the bottom is there, so it's sufficient enough. For the lighting, to get more contrast from it, make sure that you plug the color value of this image to the strength as well, and multiply it with some value like converter math, some value bigger than 1, so multiply by 2, for example. And the other thing, if it should convince somebody that it's actually in the environment, it has to be rotated properly. So if I go to the camera view, and here where is background images, I turn down the opacity of the actual background, I can rotate with the world, with the environment, until it roughly aligns with the background image. So I see this door and windows, and I am trying to align them with the world, windows and doors, and I am pretty sure that the 100 degrees were kind of where it should be. I could try it with in different frames, so from different views, and it looks like it should work. Well, we already solved our lighting, and now we need the shadows and ambient occlusion. To preview our lighting, I will go to the rendered view. I just changed the layout and some windows in the Blender, but here I will see that I don't see pretty much anything. I will need some material, some shiny material on the teapot, so I will create new, get rid of this diffuse and add principled shader, set the metallic to 1 and reference to some really low value, and you can already see that the teapot looks like it belongs to the environment. Here, if I uncheck the transparent, I can see the lighting around it, but I actually want it to be transparent. So back to the camera view, I can get rid of the background image, so I see the alpha, but for now it's good, it's there. And on the opacity to the 1, so I will see the final result. Well, and first for the ambient occlusion, I will need just the plane to act as the ground, and already I have the ambient occlusion and the shadows as well, so it's good. The really quick trick and the feature I mentioned on the beginning of the tutorial, if I select the plane, go to the object settings, here cycle settings, and check the shadow catcher, now the plane disappears and there will remain only the shadows and ambient occlusion. So it's pretty much done for the plane part, but you can see in the reflection of the teapot that you still see the white plane there, and that's really not good, that's really awful. So we will need to put this ground as texture on our plane. So let's do it. Uncheck the shadow catcher, go back to the solid shading. Now I don't need that big plane, this should be good enough. Let's apply the scale and go to some frame. It doesn't really matter which one, but make sure you know which frame you are on. For example, the first is pretty much the best for it. And go to the edit mode and unwrap it from view. So project the plane from view and use the first frame of the background image as the texture. So here, open image where it was, background, first frame, open image. You can see that it's unwrapped as it should be, that it's projected from camera, and it will stay that way. And just use it as material for the plane. So new, it could be ground, for example. There is not really a reason for any other material than diffuse, why not? and put there texture, image texture, and use this track001 PNG. Here it is. Plug the color here. If I go to the rendered view, well, I see it now, and it's kind of deformed. I am not sure if it's a bug or if I am doing something wrong, but the really not that hard solution for this simple geometry is to just add more geometry to it with, for example, subdivisions, and now the deformations should be minimal or not no at all. So you see it now, the reflection in the teapot is the actual ground. You can make it maybe darker or lighter as you wish. Color, use saturation, make it darker, for example, like this, and activate the shadow catcher again. So the ground is now away. Well, and this is pretty much all for the shadows and ambient occlusion. If the teapot would be close to the wall or the door or some other geometry, we would just add there another plane like this, RY90, or let's face it another way, and repeat the process again, just with the wall, not only the ground, but it's not really necessary in this case. So another part will be to do something more interesting than this teapot, but it's not actually part of the tracking, so you can skip it right to the rendering and composition. Well, I would like to have something more dynamic than static little teapot, so let's do some destruction, but really fast. So let's add just this cube and destroy it. So we will need two materials for outside and inside. Outside, inside. Okay, inside could be red to see if it actually works. Some particle systems for the shards, and volume with no physics. And let's self-fracture this with own particle source limit to 360. It should be good enough. Everything goes, no sharp edges. Don't apply split edge. Material set to 1 to the inner. No margin, 0. We don't need that. Match data, split island, okay. Recenter to the second layer and set it as group shards. Well, it should work. Let's hit OK. Well, seems like it actually worked. Let's get rid of this. Let's see the second layer. It's not perfect, but what the hell, we don't need it perfect right now. Let's see. Well, inside looks good as well, so just make it smaller and move it a little bit above, so you will see the destruction. And for ground, use of course again something with volume like this cube, but we don't want to render that at all. Okay, and this should be where it is. Physics, add passive with a box shape. Maybe just turn the friction a little bit higher. And all these shards, Shift G group, it will be active, change shape, convex hull, and it's pretty much all. Let's see if it will work. Well, looks like it is, but to make it kind of more interesting, let's connect them. Let's see the setting, fixed but not selection to active, but chain by distance could be interesting. Okay, and let's select one of these, Shift G group, and let's see, let's make it breakable with not 10, something lower, and let's see what it will do. Just right click, copy to selected, right click, copy to selected. So it's same for all of them. Let's see how it will work. Well, maybe even lower value, like just 1, copy to selected. Well, I think it's good enough, but it deserves more iteration per frame. So let's see rigid body settings, where it is. Here, rigid body cache. We need only 120 frames, but yes, we want definitely more iteration here. Still the weird shaking. Let's see if group shards, if the apply transform will help. Still too much shaking for my taste. Let's crank this up. And make the constraints stronger. Shift G group. There it is. Let's get it back to 3, copy to selected, and maybe get rid of this friction a little bit. Let's see if it will help. Well, it's still weird, but I don't really want to spend too much time with this. I saw some shards fall down, so let's make this bigger. We should scale. What could we do? Let's turn this down a little bit again. Well, I could tweak it to infinity, but I think the best was so far is 240. And let's see a split impulse if it does something. I'm not sure it is. Well, let's see. Okay, I really don't want to spend too much time with this. So as I said, I could tweak it hours and hours until it's really better looking than this. But enough is enough. So let's bake it. So Shift G, group shards, that is bake to keyframes. Okay. Okay, we no longer need the ground or these constraints, so let's delete them. Let's see. Well, it works. We will need this plane bigger, at least in the Y direction. So let's move this out of the here. So these shards actually have the shadows and the ambient occlusion as we talk about it. Let's move this here, add the subdivisions, and we of course need to change the UV map. So let's back to the first frame, view, project from view, so it still works as we set it up. Okay, we have kind of dynamic scene. Everything should work as it should. So now let's go right to the rendering. Well, for the rendering, we need to solve our materials or create the materials. We already have it on the ground, so just set the materials for the shards itself. So let's change this a little bit, change the layout to node editor and a little smaller window here. to see what's happening. Here, for example, image editor, and I like to have timeline here. And let's see, rendered view, okay. And we have two materials, outside, inside. Outside could be, again, shader principled, why not? And it could be, what could be outside of this? Like slightly bluish thing, not very rough, maybe darker. Okay, something like this. I already see that it would be probably better to turn down the exposition here, exposure like 0.64, and make sure we are using Filmic. Could be very important later. Where it is, color management, render Filmic with base contrast. Okay, now it looks like we probably need more exposure or not. This could be good enough as it is. So let's go to the inside. What could be inside? Shader principled, where it is. Inside could be reddish metallic material, not exactly rough, but there could be some anisotropy, maybe more rough. It doesn't really look that interesting, but it's there. Maybe in the motion it will look interesting, and you can already see how it will kind of look on the render itself. Now just setting for the camera, make sure you have your depth of field set it as close as the original footage. I have pretty blurred and shaky the original footage, so this depth of field doesn't really make that difference, but just for the principle of it, I will add some empty to the center of the scene, named it, for example, focus, and select camera, where it is, and here select this to focus and f-stop to some kind of normal value, 3.6. It's not really noticeable, it's just there to show you where it is. Okay, turn on motion blur, it is turned on. This should be calculated from the shutter speed of your camera when you actually recorded it. Keep in mind that this number 0.016, it's not in seconds, it's in frames, so you have to divide it by your frame rate to get your shutter speed. And now the composition itself. I actually highly recommend to not do any composition in the Blender itself, just render it as sequence of PNGs with alpha, like this, and combine it with your background footage in some other application like Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, HitFilm, whatever, or even video editor in Blender, but do it later. You will probably have more options there, but I will show you how to combine it inside Blender in the composition, of course, just for the sake of this tutorial. So let's go here, use nodes, let's see what is there. Nothing. Here are the render layers, so it's our image with transparent background. The transparency is here, film transparent, we already checked it. And we will need, of course, our background. Okay, import movie clip, track 1, it's that. Just use, where it is, color alpha over, put the movie clip on the top and the render layer on the bottom, pre-multiply, and you already see the result. You can, of course, change it, color correct it to whatever you want. This should be enough for you to just hit render and you will get some result. Well, this was pretty long. I hope it kind of made sense, that it's kind of closure behind that first part of camera tracking. This has actually nothing to do with the camera tracking. This was just some advices to how to use the camera tracking to actually compose the scene after that, and hope you will find something useful in this tutorial. I thank you very much for watching, and I will edit the result of this tutorial right here, and after that, bye.